Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Om Apavitra Pavitrova Sarva Avastangato Piva Ya Smaret Pundarik Akshang Sabhaya Abhyantara Suchihi. Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Sri Gurung Dinataranam. Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Parama Ananda Madhavam. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarar Iva Sahishnuna. Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyata. So, previously in Krishna book, we hear, we saw, we read that Krishna is sitting in his assembly house, Sudharma, and a very peculiar individual, a stranger, entered, and he was representing 20,800 kings who had been imprisoned by Jarasandha, which he was going to offer to Mahabhairava, Lord Shiva. And after the messenger made his plea, entering the assembly house was the sage Narada. And he informed Krishna that Maharaj Yudhisthira wants you, Krishna, to come to Hastinapur because Yudhisthira is going to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, declaring himself sovereign king of all the world. And he wants to do it in your presence, Krishna, because simultaneously Yudhisthira wants to establish for everyone that you are the Supreme Personality, Purusha Uttama. So, when this arrangement, this idea, this invitation came from Narada on behalf of Yudhisthira, Krishna, rather than settle the dilemma himself, he said, Uddhava, what do you think is best? I have two things here. Which one should I do? Should I go to Hastinapur and attend the Rajasuya sacrifice and thus bless Yudhisthira? Or should I go and kill Jarasandha and deliver the 20,800 kings who have surrendered and accepted me? So Uddhava is famous because he is disciple of Brihaspati. Brihaspati, a most learned Brahmana, is the guru advisor for the demigods headed by Indra. So, as we mentioned, Krishna likes to give credit to his devotees. Of course, Krishna can do anything and everything, but he derives great pleasure when he empowers one of his devotees to do something wonderful. Indirectly, Krishna gets praised. So since Uddhava was very intelligent and was a learned disciple of Brihaspati, Krishna said, "So Uddhava, what should I do?" And very intelligently, Uddhava said, "Well, first of all, Yudhisthira cannot perform the Rajasuya sacrifice until all the kings have voluntarily surrendered. And we know Jarasandha is not going to surrender. So therefore, I think first we have to defeat and finally kill Jarasandha. Then Yudhisthira can perform the Rajasuya sacrifice properly." So the decision was made then that that's exactly what they would do. And Uddhava gave direct instructions that since Jarasandha was known to be very charitable to Brahmanas, Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima should go to Jarasandha's kingdom, Magadha, and they should go dressed as Brahmanas and beg charity. And that charity would be that they would fight Jarasandha. Specifically, Bhima would fight Jarasandha. So that's where we left off. So now we go to the next section. This one is called Lord Krishna Visits Hastinapur. The chariot of Lord Krishna started for Hastinapur, accompanied by many other chariots, along with elephants, cavalry, infantry, and similar royal paraphernalia. Bugles, drums, trumpets, conch shells, and horns all produced a loud, auspicious sound which vibrated in all directions. The 16,108 queens, headed by the goddess of fortune, Rukmini Devi, the ideal wife of Lord Krishna, and accompanied by their respective sons, all followed behind Lord Krishna. The queens were dressed in costly garments, decorated with ornaments, and their bodies were smeared with sandalwood pulp and garlanded with fragrant flowers. Riding on palanquins nicely decorated with silks, flags, and golden lace, the queens followed their exalted husband, Lord Krishna. The infantry soldiers carried shields, swords, and lances in their hands, and they acted as royal bodyguards to the queens. In the rear of the procession were the wives and children of all the other followers, and there were many society girls also who were following the procession. Many beasts of burden like bulls, buffalo, mules, and asses carried the camps, bedding, and carpets, and the women who followed were seated in separate palanquins on the backs of camels. This panoramic procession was accompanied by the shouts of the people and was full with the display of different colored flags, umbrellas, and chamara whisks, as well as different varieties of weapons, dress, ornaments, helmets, and armaments. Shining in the sunlight, the procession appeared just like an ocean with its high waves and sharks. In this way, the procession of Lord Krishna's party advanced towards Hastinapur, New Delhi, and gradually passed through the kingdoms of Anarta, the Gujarat province, Sauvira, Surat, the great desert of Rajasthan, and also Kurukshetra. Between those kingdoms were many mountains, rivers, towns, villages, pasturing grounds, and mining fields. The procession passed through all those places in its advance. On his way to Hastinapur, Krishna crossed two big rivers, the Drishadvati and the Sarasvati. Then Krishna crossed the province of Panchal and the province of Matsya. In this way, Krishna ultimately arrived at Hastinapur. The audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is not very commonplace. Therefore, when King Yudhishthira heard that Lord Krishna had arrived in his capital city, Yudhishthira became so joyful that all his bodily hair stood on end out of ecstasy. And Yudhishthira immediately came out of the city to properly receive Krishna. Yudhishthira ordered the musical vibration of different instruments and songs, and the learned Brahmins of the city began to chant the hymns of the Vedas very loudly. Lord Krishna is known as Rishikesha, master of the senses. So King Yudhishthira went forward to receive Krishna exactly as the senses meet the consciousness of life. King Yudhishthira was the elder cousin of Krishna. So naturally, Yudhishthira had great affection for Krishna, and as soon as Yudhishthira saw Krishna, Yudhishthira's heart became filled with great love and affection. Yudhishthira had not seen Krishna for many days, and therefore Yudhishthira thought himself most fortunate to see Krishna present before him. The king therefore embraced Lord Krishna again and again in great affection. The eternal form of Lord Krishna is the everlasting residence of the goddess of fortune. As soon as King Yudhishthira embraced Krishna, Yudhishthira became free from all the contamination of material existence. Yudhishthira immediately felt transcendental bliss and merged into an ocean of happiness. There were tears in his eyes, and his body shook in ecstasy. Yudhishthira completely forgot that he was living in the material world. After this, the second brother of the Pandavas, named Bhimasena, smiled and embraced Lord Krishna, thinking of Krishna as his own maternal cousin. And thus Bhima also merged in great ecstasy. Bhimasena was so filled with ecstasy that for the time being, Bhima forgot his material existence. Then Lord Sri Krishna himself embraced the other three Pandavas, Arjuna, and the two twins, Nakula and Sahadev. The eyes of all three brothers were inundated with tears, and Arjuna especially embraced Krishna again and again because they were intimate friends. The two younger Pandava brothers, after being embraced by Lord Krishna, fell down at Krishna's lotus feet to offer respect. Lord Krishna there offered obeisances to the Brahmins who were present, as well as to the elder members of the Kuru dynasty, such as Bhishma, Drona, and Dhritarashtra. There were many kings of different provinces, such as Kuru, Srinjai, and Kekai, and Lord Krishna duly reciprocated greetings and respects with all of them. The professional reciters like Sutas, Magadas, and Vandis accompanied by the Brahmins, offered their respectful prayers to Krishna. Performing artists like the Gandharvas, as well as the royal jokers, began to play their drums, conch shells, kettle drums, veenas, mridangas, and bugles. And they also exhibited their dancing art just to please Krishna. Thus, the all-famous Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, entered the great city of Hastinapur, which was opulent in every respect. And while Lord Krishna was entering the city, all the people talked among themselves about the glories of Krishna, praising Krishna's transcendental name, quality, form, and so on. The roads, streets, and lanes of Hastinapur were all sprinkled with fragrant water through the trunks of intoxicated elephants. In different places of the city, there were colorful festoons and flags decorating the houses and streets. At important road crossings, there were gates with golden decorations. And at the two sides of the gates, there were golden water jugs. These beautiful decorations glorified the opulence of the city of Hastinapur. Participating in this great ceremony, all the citizens gathered here and there, dressed in colorful new clothing and decorated with ornaments, flower garlands, and fragrant scents. The houses were all illuminated by hundreds and thousands of lamps, all placed in different corners of the cornices, walls, columns, bases, and architraves. And far away, the rays of the lamps appeared to be celebrating the festival of Deepavali. Within the walls of the houses, fragrant incense was burning, and smoke rose through the windows, making the entire atmosphere very pleasing. On top of every house, there were flags flapping, and the golden water pots kept on the roofs shone brilliantly. Lord Krishna then entered the city of the Pandavas, enjoyed the beautiful atmosphere, and slowly proceeded ahead. Now, when the young girls in every house heard that Lord Krishna, who is the only object actually worth seeing, that Krishna was passing on the road, the young girls were very eager to see this all-famous personality, Krishna. Their hair loosened, and their tightened saris became slack due to their hastily rushing to see Krishna. They gave up their household engagements, and those who were lying in bed with their husbands immediately left them and came directly down onto the street to see Lord Krishna. So this last paragraph is a nice explanation of what we mean when we say that Krishna is all attractive. This attitude, the response of the young girls in every house, dropping everything to go see Krishna, reminds us of the night of the Rasa dance, when Krishna blew his flute, and no matter what the gopis were doing, immediately they dropped everything, stopped everything, and ran to go see Krishna. So throughout this entire Krishna book, in all the various chapters that we have studied, we have been given a glimpse just how attractive is Krishna. We also heard in Vrindavan Leela, when the gopis were remembering the flute, we heard that everything in Vrindavan was attracted by the sound of Krishna's flute. Not only the gopis, but even animals, even the river Yamuna, everyone is attracted to Krishna. Let us continue. The procession of elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry was very crowded. Some of the girls, being unable to see properly in the crowd, got up on the roofs of the houses. Pleased to see Lord Sri Krishna passing with his 16,108 queens, the young girls showered flowers on the procession, and within their minds they embraced Krishna and gave Krishna a hearty reception. So that reminds me also, this is an important point. There is no material impediment in loving and serving Krishna. So even though one might not be able to do something physically, within the mind, as you see here, within their minds, the young girls embrace Krishna. So this shows there is no material impediment or check for developing love of Krishna. It only depends on the strength of your desire. When the young girls saw Krishna in the midst of his many queens, just like the moon situated amidst many luminaries, the young girls began to talk among themselves. One girl said, "Oh, my dear friend, it is very difficult to guess what kind of pious activities these queens must have performed, for they are always enjoying the smiling face and loving glances of Krishna." And while Lord Krishna was passing on the road, at intervals, some of the citizens, who were all rich, respectable, and freed from sinful activities, presented auspicious articles to Krishna just to offer Krishna a reception to the city of Hastinapur. Thus they worshiped Krishna as humble servitors. When Lord Krishna finally entered the palace, all the ladies there were overwhelmed with affection just upon seeing Krishna. Immediately they received Lord Krishna with glittering eyes, expressing their love and affection for Krishna. And Lord Krishna smiled, accepting their feelings and gestures of reception. When the mother of the Pandavas, Kunti, saw her nephew, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kunti was overpowered by love and affection. Kunti at once got up from her bedstead and appeared before Krishna with her daughter-in-law, Draupadi. And in maternal love and affection, Kunti embraced Krishna, who was her nephew. As King Yudhishthira brought Krishna within the palace, the king became so confused in his jubilation that Yudhishthira practically forgot what he was supposed to do at that time in order to properly receive Krishna and worship him. Lord Krishna delightfully offered respects and obeisances to Kunti and other elderly ladies of the palace. Krishna's younger sister, Subhadra, was also standing there with Draupadi, and both offered respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Krishna. At the indication of her mother-in-law, Kunti, Draupadi brought clothing, ornaments, and garlands. And with this paraphernalia, they received Krishna's queens, headed by Rukmini, Satyabhama, Bhadra, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, Lakshmana, and the devoted Satya. These 8 principal queens of Lord Krishna were received first, and then the other 16,100 queens were also offered a proper reception. King Yudhisthira then arranged for Krishna's rest and saw to it that all who came along with Krishna, namely Krishna's queens, soldiers, ministers, and secretaries, were all comfortably situated. Yudhisthira had arranged that they would experience a new feature of reception every day while staying as guests of the Pandavas. Now it was during this time that Lord Sri Krishna, with the help of Arjuna, allowed the fire god Agni to devour the Kandava forest for Agni Dev's satisfaction. During the forest fire, Krishna saved the demon Maya Asura, who was hiding in the forest. And upon being saved, this Maya Danava felt obliged to the Pandavas and Lord Krishna. And so, Maya Danava constructed a wonderful assembly house within the city of Hastinapur. Just to please King Yudhisthira, Lord Krishna remained in the city of Hastinapur for several months. During his stay, Krishna enjoyed strolling here and there, and Krishna used to drive on chariots with Arjuna, and many warriors and soldiers used to follow them. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura